That was
I gotta say,
flawless.
You know what? They make it look easy. It ain't easy.
Does Dave make it look easy, though? I feel like he makes it look harder than it should be.
I think he makes it look effortless.
Yeah, sometimes.
He is a classically trained musician. Devin, did you know Shane is moving closer to you?
I did not know that.
Yeah. He might end up cutting this. I don't know if I'm doxing him. Hopefully not. He's moving back to Ohio.
Oh, okay.
His family is relocating to Ohio, saying farewell to the Rocky Mountains and hello to the river valleys.
It's pretty cool. Closer to you guys, too.
Finally equidistant between us, and we can tug a war for his attention. What do you think is the first thing we should do when Shane's back in the Midwest?
Commander Night?
Okay. I know you're a big fan.
Oh, I'm a huge fan.
I know you got your new SpongeBob cards.
Yeah, I actually have I'm not going to try to say the name, but Asmo. That's my commander.
Do you actually have an Asmo commander deck?
No, but
it's the bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's my favorite card, so.
I think I saw in a Fire Shoes tweet that Asmo is good in like the 1v1 commander format on Moto.
Ooh, the dual commander or whatever.
Or something.
Yeah. I haven't really got into that. I've seen that they started adding like challenges and all these kinds of things, but I haven't tried it myself. Looks fun.
Nor I. Maybe we can do that for an upcoming episode.
What would your dual commander be?
Well, one of my go-to commanders is Gearson Starn. He's like is it Pinger Lord from Warhammer Commander?
Okay. That's probably why I never heard of him.
Yes, that's exactly why I never heard of him. But he basically, anytime a source deals 1 damage to something, he adds an additional 2 damage.
Oh, okay.
And he's good. And I really like that deck. So maybe that would be my dual commander. Maybe Flage.
Listeners, if you participate in the dual commander, let us know.
That, and if you want us to transition into a full-time dual commander podcast, do let us know.
Yes, 100%, because I'm here for it.
It would only take one person to say yes for us to do it too.
We might even get Shane back on at that point. Like if we talk dual commander, like he's in.
He runs the official Twitter account, but it's not his main, so I don't know if I'm supposed to share it.
Isn't that why he's going back to Ohio to to run the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know how there's like the East Coast vintage tester, the East Coast testers as they're known, and the vintage crew. Ohio has a big dual commander scene, and Shane's ready to penetrate it.
Makes sense to me.
Hello and welcome to episode 314 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago, and with me on the line from the sister city of the dual commander capital of the world, it's Devin O'Donnell, aka Doomwake.
Sister city, huh? I don't know if that's how I would describe the Boston area, but there might be a big dual commander scene over there. I don't know.
You never know.
I have to look into that.
Why does the East Coast have that big vintage scene?
That's a really good question. I don't know if it's
still true that it does.
Oh yeah, so it's the NYSE, which is the New York Stock Exchange. They have like a huge vintage events every single year, and I don't know if like that's just where the first big vintage events happened. You know, again, listeners, if you want to let us know in the comments section, like I'm from the East Coast and I sincerely don't know. I don't know if it's, you know, I don't know if the format like started over here. I really don't know.
It's interesting that the stock exchange hosts these events because I feel like you have to be a Wall Street trader to be able to afford a lot of those cards these days.
True. Yeah, there's definitely some expensive ones. I mean, even not even the Power 9, you know, like Mishra's Workshop, Bazaar of Baghdad, that kind of stuff.
I don't know what those cards do, and I never want to know what those cards do.
They're good. Let's just say that they're good.
Well, on this week's show, we are not going to talk about Mishra's Workshop or other vintage cards, Maybe one day. I think Vintage is very cheap to play on Moto.
Yeah.
Like it may actually even be cheaper than Modern in terms of like ticks.
Probably. Because the Power 9 is all super cheap.
Yeah. But that's not this week's episode. No. In fact, this episode, it almost has no rules.
I was going to say, what are we doing today?
We're going to talk about a couple things. First, we're going to talk about our adventures in Modern and Standard. But I want to frame that conversation in the unusual moment we are in as competitive Magic players, where my feeling is that no amount of practice or testing matters. That's the premise of this episode. Nothing matters. So how are you supposed to make the most out of your time?
Okay. And I'm here to disprove that theory.
Or support it. I don't know.
Okay. No spoilers.
Yes. So, Devin's been playing a lot of Standard. I've been playing a fair amount of Modern and trying to prepare for the upcoming RCQ season. But BNR is next week.
Yeah, it's tough.
And things are likely to change. But practice is not futile, in my opinion. I don't think. But we'll talk about it. And then I think we should wrap up with a little more spoily chatter, just because there's some cool cards in Tarkir.
There is some really sick ones. I don't know. We'll get into this later. I don't know how many of them are going to, seep into Modern, but there are some bangers for Standard.
Well, Modern loves dragons. Anytime there's a big new dragon, Modern players scoop them up.
I don't know about that.
But before we debate about that, let's housekeep. 2 new patrons have joined the Dive Down Nation, Corey B and Coffee. Yay. Thank you to you both. If you'd like to join the Dive Down Nation, we're at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can support us at our store, thedivedown.com/store. We have promo code at Heavy Play, the Dive Down 2025, 10% off your first order with Heavy Play. And of course, you can get some cash back from Mana Traders if you use promo code the Dive Down, all one word.
Yeah, I got to say that new Heavy Play stuff that the new products they put out, absolutely fantastic. The playmat, they have like the new fancy art playmat. They got the deck box carrier, the playmat tube. A lot of cool new products in the pipeline for Heavy Play.
I have a black mana playmat. I don't know if it's serialized. I haven't opened it. It's still in its original packaging. I also have a playmat tube, also in its original packaging. I want to figure out how to give it to a Dive Down listener. I just haven't figured out the right circumstances or really the method or apparatus to use to do a modest giveaway.
Well, we could do Spotify comments where if we I don't know, just kind of putting this out there. If you do, Spotify comments, if anybody, list the people who comment on the video, put those names into a random generator and then do it from there. I don't know if that's a good idea, but
it's certainly an idea. While you were talking, the idea that popped into my head is I should ask ChatGPT or some other AI model to create some kind of effortless scavenger hunt, place the scavenger hunt into the upcoming episode, and then use Spotify comments, as you suggested, to get people to participate in that scavenger hunt. And whoever solves the hunt first, or I guess the first 2 people to solve the hunt, could get some of these things. Should we make them work for it?
That's up to you.
It is up to me. It's been up to me for like the 2 months that I've had these things.
True.
Collecting dust.
Patreon giveaway could be a thing too.
I think there's laws against that. I think there's like something about gambling or something. Dave looked into this and encouraged me not to do Patreon giveaways for legal reasons.
Interesting. Good to know.
But laws don't matter now anyway. So
no. What even is a law? I don't know what that word means.
Laws are something that happens every quarter from the folks at Wizards of the Coast when they tell us which cards are legal or illegal to play in our favorite formats. How's that for a transition?
That's accurate.
And we have a new law down the pipeline, I think this time next week, Monday
7
the 31st.
days. Next week's episode's going to be a nice one.
I hope.
I mean, it's going to be what we expect, you would assume, but
we'll see. Next week will either be an episode of yeah, of course, or the sky is falling.
Yeah, or it's going to be a standard all episode.
Yes.
Or that's when we transition to Dual Commander, right?
I think the smart money is on Underworld Breach getting banned. Do you have any other last minute predictions, expectations, hopes, or desires for the BNR?
So I put out a YouTube video sometime last week with my predictions for the BNR, and the modern section was just breach ban, nothing else. And a lot of people had commented, asking me about unbans, right? Because that is certainly a possibility as well. I don't think anything else should or will get banned per se. And the interesting thing about unbans is it's almost like I thought I knew who WotC was before, but after they dropped this last bombshell on us, I mean, they could literally do anything. Once they unban Opal and looting, it's like anything is on the table. So, I mean, if you look at the ban list, things like, Punishing Fire, Umazawa's Jite, Birthing Pod, I think those are kind of like the three that are the most common amongst chatter. And I could see one or all of those coming off and probably not having that much of an impact.
Huh. I do feel like I agree with the premise. It does feel like nearly everything is on the table now. I mean, we're never going to see Oko and Hogek again.
No, yeah, there's the red, 5-alarm fire cards.
Yeah. That's never going to happen. But yeah, Jite I think is an interesting one. I feel like Violent Outburst could make a cheeky comeback at this rate, but
please.
I do feel like on the one hand, I did not expect anything to be unbanned right now because the last batch of unbans still feel relatively fresh, such that there's still room for discovery for them once you get Breach off the table, because I think the Breach deck is sucking so much air out of the room. On the other hand, seeing how much excitement they injected into the format with the last batch of unbans and knowing that the modern RCQ season is right around the corner, that could be a very surprising way for them to say, hey, you're about to play a whole bunch of modern. Let's play all these new crazy cards that you thought were off the table.
Spice it up a little bit,
I think that would be a shock to a lot of players, but anything is possible at this rate.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying about when they first did the unban, they injected a lot of hype and a lot of, around the format. But then basically, 2 weeks in, once people stopped playing all their Sweet Zenith and Sweet Looting decks, people found Breach and it was like, okay, well, now we're done here. We can stop playing this format. And it almost feels like once they get rid of Breach, then we're kind of going back to, oh, hey, did you guys remember they unbanned Looting in Opal, right?
Yeah, I think that when they made those 4 unbans too, the format needed an injection.
Yes.
In the way that it just wasn't fun to play at all. And I don't think that, say what you will about Breach being kind of a miserable experience for some Breach players and people who are playing against it, I don't know that Modern is in as dire of a state as it was in December. And I think part of that is because first we were really pissed off about Nadu. Then I think a lot of people were really pissed off about Energy. And I think we were really nervous about the cycle of like print something broken, unban, print something broken, or print something broken, ban it, print something broken, ban it. And I don't know that we are in a similar cycle currently. And I think some of what we discussed last week, Dave and I were talking about the Hunter Burton Memorial Open, and there was an RC in Bangkok. There was also a Modern Spotlight in Utrecht. And there was spice. There was people like experimenting with the format. And it still felt to me, at least from that data sample, that there was life in Modern. There was incentive to experiment. And I think with Breach gone, people will find even more incentive to do that. So let's say Breach is the only card that gets banned. That deck is likely just dead as a result, right? I don't see... It's not like the deck plays a lot of plan B Breach alternatives. When you shut off its graveyard or artifact package, it's playing like Jace as an alt win con, but I don't think that deck suddenly becomes a Jace deck, for instance. Or do you feel like maybe the core is strong enough that playing Grinding Station to mill yourself out could actually be viable still? Or would that it still just wouldn't work because you need the engine that Breach provides?
It wouldn't work. I mean, there could be some kind of like maybe like Mox, Opal, Emery, Tameo. Like that core of cards is good. Yeah, it could be Urza, could be like Rumble with Saga, could be Mono Blue. Like there definitely is going to be some sort of good like Opal, Bauble, Emery, Tameo deck, because that core 16 is just so unbelievably good together. But it's definitely, I would assume, going to be more of a fair deck, maybe slanted towards affinity with stuff like Thought Monitor and Kappa Cannoneer.
Mm-hmm. What is that core good at doing?
Drawing a lot of cards.
Honestly, like that's it. It just draws you a ton of cards because Emery gets you extra bobbled every turn, and
Tameo making clues.
You have the clues from Tameo.
Yeah, the other thing that like a really fast Tameo does is just put a lot of pressure on your opponent. Like if you flip Tameo on turn 2, it's going to end the game when you get to the ultimate. Like people are just not beating people aren't beating you drawing half your deck.
But if you don't have like an I win combo, what does drawing half your deck do for you?
I mean, like I said, like Urza, Kappa Cannoneer, play some number of those threats and then just hold up, Metallic Rebukes and Flare of Denials and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not going to win the game that turn, but it'll basically, set up this sort of, state of inevitability.
Right. I think even if that happens, and that's still a big if, I do agree, like there's going to be somewhere where Mox Opal sees play, just because that is one of the strongest cards in Modern's history. I don't think that card ceases to exist just because the Grinding Station deck doesn't exist anymore. But I still think we see a huge shift in the format, because part of what makes Grinding Station such a powerful and problematic deck is that simple artifact hate isn't enough to deal with it. People are packing multiples of Stony Silence with Karns, and in the Boros decks you have Ranger Captain, but in a lot of white red decks that have access to white and red, you're seeing Wear and Tear, you're seeing surgicals across the board. There's like all this technology that people are turning to be able to layer hate against this deck, and I think a lot of that just becomes unnecessary overnight.
Yeah, another big one is Chalice of the Void. Right. And, one deck that I kind of gravitate towards or look towards as an example is the one that won, was it the Australia RC? Remember you saw that deck, right? The Eldrazi deck it was like colorless Eldrazi that had Chalice and Karn, Flesh Raker, like that kind of deck. That is a 4-card, 4 Chalice deck. And part of the reason why that stuff is good is because of the Breach matchup. So it's, like you mentioned, a lot of stuff like that just kind of falls by the wayside. Like, how much value are you getting out of your Karn plus Chalice in a game 1 where people are no longer playing Breach?
Yeah.
Ranger Captain, another big one too.
Totally. Yeah. Especially because it sucks. And
yeah, the only reason you're playing is because it's good against Breach, but
yeah. And I can't wait to never have to play it again. Kind of wonder if I should sell it, actually, because it went up in price.
Well, I think they're like 50 or 60 now.
Yeah.
They're probably going to tank after that.
Okay.
Not a financial advice podcast, though, by the way. Just
not a financial advice podcast. This is not the New York Stock Exchange.
We're not playing vintage.
No, we're trading in penny stocks here.
Yes.
With Breach gone, I think we will see an opportunity for Orzhov, Boros, and Eldrazi to reassert their dominance as well. And I think, as mentioned, like Mox Opal will find a home. It could be Affinity. It could be this fair blue Urza, Emery, Tameo shell. Could even be something like Hammer Time.
Yeah, I could buy that. Trying to think of some other stuff, like maybe Hardened Scales, some sort of like, really weird Asmo cookbook deck with Mox Opal. Trying to think of what else. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
I'm excited to be surprised.
But yeah, like you're right. Affinity will definitely be some sort of a deck, because I mean, even with Breach in the format, some people are still doing reasonably well in challenges with Affinity.
Yes. I've also noticed in challenges that Breach has dropped off
a lot.
And I feel like it's just people just don't register.
Yeah, they're bored.
It's just a gentleman's agreement. Like
we all know what's going to happen.
There's more fun. There's more fun things to do. With the exact course of events remaining unclear, however, I feel like it's put people like us who want to play for stakes or use online play as a means to practice for paper play in kind of this tight spot of, you can't necessarily in my case, you can't practice for the RCQ format because you don't know exactly what that format's going to be. Like in your case, you're not playing a ton of Modern, I know, but you're qualified for a couple of standard RCs. Those standard RCs happen sets away.
Yep.
Which got me thinking, what are you supposed to do if you want to play a competitive format and you want to get better, but the format that you are playing today is not the format that you need to play, next time you have stakes on the line? I have a personal approach and kind of like how I've been using this time. I'm curious if you have an opinion on it in general.
Okay, hit me.
I've kind of just been playing whatever the heck I want and really prioritizing weird stuff for the sake of trying something different and learning what cards do and trying to understand why people do well with certain things. For instance, I've done a couple leagues with Living End.
Ooh.
Basically, anytime Manino Ne does well in a challenge with a Living End list, I'll just fire up whatever. I'll copy and paste that list and run it through a league.
You're just living vicariously through the banned violent outbursts.
Just trying.
I know.
Trying.
It's hard out here. I get it.
Yeah. And there was a couple weeks where Living End was popping up over and over and over again. It made top 8 in one of the big Modern tournaments that we talked about last week, and it was really consistent in Moto results, even though I think I haven't seen it as much in the last week since we recorded that previous episode. But filling your graveyard with cheap cyclers that then turn into like a big kahuna burger is good. And even though not having violent outbursts obviously makes the deck a lot worse, especially now that it doesn't even play Flare of Denial anymore. There was a
Really?
moment where I was doing that too.
Okay.
I still feel like the deck has an axis on which that it is effective, and I at least free rolled my leagues. I didn't trophy any of them, but I went 3-2 and 4-1 across a couple of leagues, and it felt like the stuff I was losing to was just really good against combo.
Okay.
And not necessarily the deck losing to itself.
Sure.
And I think one of the things that like really stuck out to me was the way that deck is built now. A lot of the newest cheap cyclers are huge. So you can sometimes just do like a Street Wraith and the green land cycler from
Generosent?
Lord of the Rings, Generosent, and then you just have like 8, maybe 10 power with the Charlotte's Agent, and that in and of itself is like a problem for a lot of decks that, like blue black, for instance, just doesn't have the means to remove like one of those big creatures, and then you're just trying to they're trying to outclass you with a bigger Murktide or something.
Yeah, they can't kill one of them, let alone, 2 5/6s or whatever.
Yeah, like they have to hope that they have like their one of copy of Shot the Sheriff or whatever that card is called, and it's hard to find that one of sometimes.
It is.
So yeah, Living End I thought was fine, but I was, like I said, I was strictly doing it for the sake of doing something different. And the other example of that is I finally fired up some Jeskai energy.
Okay.
To play, what is it, Mockingbird,
Expressive Iteration, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the only blue cards are, in fact, Mockingbird, Consigned to Memory, and some decks have Expressive Iteration in the main. The one I have been playing does have Expressive Iteration in the main, but I've noticed that that's not necessarily standard or stock. And a lot of Jeskai decks online are titled Jeskai, but they're only playing blue for the sideboard consigns.
Okay. Not even the Mockingbirds?
Not even Mockingbirds.
Really? Okay.
I will say, Mockingbird, interesting card.
I mean, it is. That's one of the few cards that makes Ranger Captain good, right?
That's a good point.
Because that is one of the, basically the way that you kind of cheese out Breach or just any sort of combo deck is you just go Ranger Captain for Mockingbird, hope that they don't make you sack at that turn, and then the next turn, copy Ranger Captain, and then you just start, doing that Ranger Captain every single turn for as many Mockingbirds as you have.
I haven't had to find that line. So first of all, I was not familiar with that line. And second of all, I didn't even have to find it because I'm never playing against Breach. It's just like,
well, that's true. Yeah.
No one registers Breach in leagues anymore. But that's good to know because a lot of these decks are playing, I think, 2 to 3 Mockingbirds and 4 Ranger Captain these days. And I assume the Ranger Captain was primarily for Breach. And I'm sure that, I mean, it's obviously there for the Breach, but I didn't know that if you maxed out on Ranger Captains and then paired it with Mockingbirds, you also just had a stew going then.
You're just trying to find every single possible reason to not register Ranger Captain of EOS. That's okay. You know, that's fine.
That is true. I mean, my deck does have it, but I just any time that I'm not playing against Breach, which is every match essentially, that's the first card I'm trying to cut.
Yeah. There's some instances where it's like maybe okay in the mirror match if you can go fetch an Ocelot Bride, but you know, it's like how relevant is Ocelot Bride by turn 4 if they've already like, you know, they may have a kill spell in hand. I don't know. It's kind of a weird one.
I think Mockingbird is still cool in and of itself, giving you extra Ocelots or giving you extra Goddess Souls. I didn't realize until I played it against someone that you can also copy opponents' creatures too, which is not nothing. And yeah, the card is neat. Doesn't feel strong enough to incentivize me playing blue because I'm 4 matches into a league. I'm currently 3-1 in this league, and of the 3 match wins, I think at least 2 of them I never played a blue card.
Really?
So because there's so few of them.
Yeah.
And same with Expressive Iteration. I think the deck is playing 2, maybe it's 3. The first one is the only one I ever want to play. After that, I'm trying to ditch them to Fables or something. Or there was one game where I played Expressive and I revealed another Expressive, and I was just like, I don't want to draw another Expressive. That's going back in the library.
Yeah, it does seem like the biggest reason, like you mentioned, to play blue is just specifically the consigned memories, because, you know, that is probably one of, if not your worst possible matchups. Yeah. And having, you know, a really good sideboard card against Eldrazi is hard to find in just Boros.
Yeah. So I don't know what next I will play in my weird era of pre-ban Modern, but that's just kind of what I've wanted to do, is just play different cards for the sake of playing different cards, if for no other reason than to know what they do. Because I've read Mockingbird a million times. I still didn't know until I cast it that it can copy other people's creatures. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you want to learn the interactions, you know, and you want to find what, like you mentioned, I think this is going back to the initial point of, you know, what do you do in a situation like this where you have the ban announcement coming up and it feels like you're potentially playing a dead format. It's kind of expanding your knowledge and expanding your range. Not only just that, but also like, you know, just learning like how cards specifically work with each other, because there's, you know, weird interactions. And, you know, if like, say, for example, you know, post ban or whatever happens next week, you know, whatever, say Eldrazi becomes a big player in the metagame. Now, you know, okay, well, I have a little bit more experience against Eldrazi. I know what I should be doing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it kind of brings me back to one of my takeaways from Portland, which was I felt like I was under practiced with my deck, even though it was the deck I like qualified with. And I mean, I was playing Boros, and I've been playing Boros nonstop since MH3, but it still felt like the 75 that I registered, I was under practice with. And I just don't want that to happen again, where like I'm putting cards in my deck that I don't really know the best way to maximize them in the widest range of situations. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm just trying to find all of the internal interactions, figure out what's good where. It's nice to play for low stakes too.
Yeah, I mean, the best advice that I could probably give, because, you know, going back to what we were, you know, the initial point was what should you do in situations like this where, you know, I have, like, for example, for me, the standard RC that I have coming up, I did some research on this. Final Fantasy's not coming out till the month after, so it's only going to be Tarkir Dragonstorm, thankfully. But still, I mean, that's, you know, for a standard format, that's an entire brand new set. And unless it's like Aether Drift, you know, hopefully it's going to have a little bit more impact than Aether Drift did. And I think a big thing for me is, and part of this is just the stream where I'm trying to brew all these different decks and all these different kinds of things. But when I find a card, and maybe this is a good segue into our next segment, when I find a card that I really like and I try to, that maybe people haven't tried as much, try to figure out the best ways to exploit that card and find better ways to utilize that, because if people haven't been playing it, there's probably a lot that's underexplored with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned something. I want to go on a quick tangent. Has Aether Drift had a low impact on Standard?
Yes, by a lot.
Do you think that's good or bad?
Tough to say. I really think we would be having a much different conversation if the rotation had not been changed from 2 to 3 years. And I think a big part of why Aether Drift had such a low impact on Standard, if you look at the numbers from the Pro Tour, by the way, the number of Aether Drift cards in top 8, it was the lowest it's been in the past 3 Standard Pro Tours. Small sample size, only 3 PTs, but...
What do you mean the number of Aether Drift cards is the lowest it's been? You
so
mean like of the new set, the lowest number of cards from the newest set?
Right. So this one was Aether Drift. I think the last one was OTJ, and the one before that was March of the Machines. For the last 3 Standard Pro Tours. But yeah, I think a big part of that is just because it's a lot harder for newer cards to be able to compete with the most powerful interactions. And when you have a larger card pool in Standard, you would initially think, well, that would actually widen the number of playable cards and sort of increase that. But the reality is, the most powerful cards are still the most powerful cards. And when you're introducing a larger card pool to interact with the most powerful cards, you end up having these pillars. And specifically, the 2 that come to mind here are Monstrous Rage and Up the Beanstalk, where because those cards are and those were the 2 most popular decks of the Pro Tour, because those cards are attacking you from such a unique angle and what they're on complete opposite ends of the spectrum, it's really hard for new decks to you really can't go in the middle, because you're either being like reds going under you or domains going over the top of you, and you can't really match the efficiency of red in any way, shape, or form, and you can't go long with domain. So it's very, very difficult for new strategies to have any sort of to compete with those decks. So really the only cards from Aether Drift that are seeing play are just upgrades to Up the Beanstalk decks and Monstrous Rage decks, and then obviously the bounce decks too. But
I wonder if this is one of the consequences of having 6 new standard sets a year.
Yes.
Where you can't necessarily expect every set to have the same impact, in part because I wonder if R&D isn't able to maintain set power level consistency at the same rate when they're putting out this much product in a very narrow window of time.
Yeah, you almost get this is maybe for the younger listeners, this may not resonate with you, but there is a period of time way back where they this is right around when the game first started in 98, 99, where they kept basically increasing the power level over the course of the couple of blocks. So then you had Tempest block, followed by Urza Saga block, and it got to a boiling over point where basically they just tried to shave a mana off of every single card until the point where you had Urza Saga block where everything was just free mana and draw 7s, and then and I think that's sort of not quite exactly what we're seeing, but it's how can you match the power level of cards like Up the Beanstalk and Monstrous Rage? Because if you're trying to sort of match that power level, then it's just everything's going to break at the same time. So it's very difficult to find that balance. I agree.
Yeah. And maybe that's by design. Maybe they know internally we're putting out 6 new standard sets. We can't make all of them as powerful because either we'll creep the format and the game to death, or it'll piss people off that their decks just keep rotating every 2 months. And then the challenge for us is just figuring out when and where we need to invest our collecting resources to acquire cards as needed.
Yeah, I mean, usually with like the average standard format has a good amount of churn, but ever since the red domain and pixie decks have been fixtures of the format, it really seems like there hasn't really been as much churn with those being at the top of the heap.
Yeah, it looks like stock up was Spell Pierce standard legal before the set.
No, Spell Pierce is technically a new card.
Yeah, some of the lands, some of the verges. Lightning Strike?
Yeah, that one was already legal.
Grim Bobble, I guess that's new.
Yeah, it's like these small upgrades, like, Grim Bobble, Momentum Breaker for Pixie, Stock Up for Pixie, Ride's End for Domain. I don't think any of the cards are seeing play in red, but it's mostly like there's not really any of the build around stuff from Aether Drift that, as a designer you would want people to play. None of that stuff is really is able to compete right now.
What about Monument to Endurance?
People are playing it. I would say the more popular version of because it's good in Oculus, right? Because the Oculus deck wants to play cards that discard cards to the graveyard. The more popular versions of Oculus don't have it, but some people are still trying it.
Yeah.
And I love that card.
So we're waiting on Dragonstorm Tarkir to fully drop for you to know what the standard format that you will be playing is. Is it in Minneapolis?
Yeah, one's in Minneapolis, one's in Hartford.
You're still playing standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're still spicing things up. You're riding the Worldwagon.
I have to, man. I got a stream to run. I gotta cook up some new brews every single day. It is hard. It is difficult to come up with new material, especially in a format like this. But I'm trying my best over here.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned to me that basically every deck you're playing right now plays Lumbering Worldwagon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to read this card because I didn't know it existed until you wrote those words to me.
Can't believe you've never seen this card.
It's a
2 and a green.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. 2 and a green for a artifact vehicle. Its power is equal to the number of lands you control. Whenever it enters or attacks, you may search your library for a basic land and put it on the battlefield tapped and shuffle. It's crew 4 for a star 4.
Yep.
I guess my first question is, why this card?
So, I think kind of this is sort of going back to the conversations that we were having earlier, or just recently about like trying to. What's the best way to frame this? Trying to attack a certain metagame, and if you take a look at the removal spells that people are playing, right? Specifically in the Pixie and the red decks, because Domain is going to play. They get a bunch of Terminates. They kill everything that doesn't count. Mm-hmm. But specifically, the less, the more specific targeted removal spells that people are playing, go for the throat. It's an artifact creature. Nowhere to run. Gives -3/-3. It's got 4 toughness. Cut down. Can't kill it. Torch the tower. Can't kill it. Lightning strike. Can't kill it. So if you kind of go through the removal spells that people are playing, it almost feels like it has hexproof sometimes, where there's some decks that just cannot kill this card. So that is definitely an aspect of and that's a good way to kind of try to figure out and attack a metagame from a slightly different angle, is like trying to find the threats that the answers are not being played for. So that's one of it. And then the other big thing about this, going back to the Domain matchup, is they have a lot of sweepers. They have Sunfall, they have Lockdown, they have Day of Judgment, and this being a vehicle means it evades all of those sweepers, right? Mm-hmm. So dodges a lot of removal, dodges sweepers, attacks for a bunch of damage. Like you play it on turn 3, you get the 4th land immediately, and then on the next turn you already have your 5th land. If you crew it, attack with it, it triggers again. So the turn after you play it, it's already attacking for 6.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
The decks that you've been playing, and we'll talk about them in a second, do they have a method of like giving it any evasion or trample or anything? Or it's just swinging for 6 enough?
So there is playing the card face up. Like it definitely needs a little bit of help, right? And all of the decks that I've been playing it in some form of another, have some way to give it evasion. Like there's ways to give it trample, there's ways to give it flying. And then in the specific, in the version, like the one version that I'm playing that doesn't give it any sort of evasion, I'm giving it haste, which is that's another way to take advantage of, okay, ETB, get a land, you get to attack and get a second land in the same turn. So, each of these decks has some way to take advantage of it in their own way.
That's hot. Let's talk about these decks for a little bit.
Okay.
You gave me 4.
I did. One of them does not have wagon.
Okay. Well, of the wagon decks, which is the best one?
Tough.
The one that has wagon in the name.
Well, they're all wagon decks. I honestly I think the Gruul Hawk one. So let's take a look at this one. So the deck I called it Gruul Hawk because it's built around another card that you probably have never read before, Dragonhawk Fate's Tempest. So this is a card from Bloomburrow. It is a 5/5 flying legendary bird dragon for 3 and 2 red, so 5 mana 5/5. When it enters or attacks, you exile X card, top X of your library, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 4 or greater. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. So you can imagine this card works very well with a bunch of 4-power creatures because the more stuff you have in play, the more cards you exile, right? So, just for example, let's say you have, one other 4-power creature. Say you have an Afterburner Expert, which is just a 3 mana 4/2. So you play Dragonhawk, you flip 2 cards, and if you don't play those, you go to your end step and they take 4 damage. So that sort of by itself gives you this like kind of pseudo haste ability on Dragonhawk, where even if you're not playing those cards, you're dealing them at least, somewhere between, 4 to 6 damage ideally. Where it gets completely out of control is when you start giving it haste. So remember, Lumbering Worldwagon, powerful card, a lot better when you can give it haste with something like Sirach the Huntcaller, which you probably know this one. This is a reprint. This is a throwback.
Oh, yeah. Is this in Foundations?
It is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people on my stream, because I played this deck today on stream, there were several people who came into my stream like, wait, Sirach is legal?
Yeah. Because it's from Dragons.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so this is 2 green for a 5/4 with Formidable. Classic ability, Formidable. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, if creatures you control have total power 8 or greater, target creature you control gains haste until end of turn, which is really easy to trigger because Sirach has 5 power. So it's just like Sirach plus Dragonhawk. There's 8 right there. Sirach plus Lumbering Worldwagon. That's 8, at least 8 right there. And then you got what it looks like you got Rocketeer Boost Buggy.
Yeah, that one. So there's this kind of other package here where I have a little bit of vehicle synergy to pair with Chandra Sparkhunter, because Chandra Sparkhunter is another cool way to give wagon haste, where Chandra has a lot of words on her, but basically she can make a 3/2 vehicle that has crew 1. And one of her main abilities is her static ability is at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can give a vehicle you control haste and flip it into a creature. So you don't have to crew it. It just automatically crews the wagon and gives it haste for you. But yeah, the boost buggies are here mostly just to kind of help out the Chandras a little bit. But where Stan is showing me his gold border Chandra Sparkhunter, that's you better sell that one.
Yeah, this is solid gold, baby. 24 karat.
It looks like a 23 karat to me.
You don't know. You didn't bite it.
That's true. I mean, I can't. If you send it to me, I will.
This was a box topper.
Was it? That's a pretty good box topper.
It was a good box topper, yeah.
But where Dragonhawk gets out of control is once you give it haste, the Dragonhawk triggers whenever it enters or attacks. So you can imagine, just out of curiosity, if you have nothing else in play, you go turn 4 Sirach, turn 5 Dragonhawk. You ETB, flip 2 cards. You haste the Dragonhawk, attack, flip 2 more. So you flip 4 cards, and then you've attacked them for 5. So just those 2 cards by themselves deal 13 damage. Because you trigger the Dragonhawk twice with 2 4-power creatures. So it gets out of control. Yeah, this deck has been sick.
Yeah.
I have been thinking about some ways, because you mentioned the evasion. There's a card in Standard. It's called Hunter's Talent. I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but you're thinking cap on now.
Yeah, Hunter's Talent. It sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you what it does.
So it's green and colorless. When it enters, you have a creature bite, so it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And then the first level for 2 mana, you can level it up. And then whenever you attack, you give it attacking creature +1/+0 and trample until end of turn. So that card is good with Wagon too.
Nice. What else is good of the 4 decks that you played? I want to make sure we have a little bit of time to talk through a few spoilies that caught our eye.
Okay.
So, any other standard highlights from either your wagon decks or beyond?
Let's do one more. Let's do this Monument deck, because I know you mentioned, but you brought up Monument earlier as another card from Aether Drift.
And the reason I brought it up is because I've just seen people both complain and wax poetic about it on Blue Sky.
In Standard?
In general,
okay.
I don't know where they're playing it.
Okay.
They just kind of like talk about Monument in a vacuum, and I'm like, okay, I guess either Standard or Commander players care about it. So,
you either love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
But so what we're doing here, similar to there have been people who've been playing it in Modern, and you're kind of trying to emulate that experience to the best of your ability, where Monument is at its best when you're pairing it with cards that have a discard cost that you don't have to pay mana for, right? Like specifically in Modern, it's good with Underworld Cookbook, and it's good with Psychic Frog, like stuff like that, where you just have unconditional discard, don't have to pay mana for. You don't quite have that as much in Standard, but you do have this little card called Guardian of New Benalia, which is a 2 mana for a 2/2. It has Enlist, probably not going to come up very often. When it enlists, you scry. Enlist is a weird ability. We don't get into that. But it has an ability where you can discard a card to give it indestructible until end of turn and tap it. That's the important part. So basically, if you have Guardian, like turn 2 Guardian, turn 3 Monument, you can start, quote unquote, cycling the cards in your hand, finding more cards. Where it gets really out of control is once you have 2 Monuments in play, right? Because then if you have Guardian plus 2 Monuments, you discard a card, draw 2 because you have 2 of them, and then discard another card to drain them for 6. And Monument triggers, you can do Monument triggers on your turn and their turn. So because you have this instant speed way to discard, you do 6 on your turn, 6 on their turn. They die very quickly. The missing piece for me, because I was trying a whole bunch of Monument decks before the Pro Tour, and I think it was Corey Lack play a Guardian. He played a Guardian Monument deck, and he had 4 copies of the Mycosynth Gardens, which is a card you might be familiar with if you're an Amulet gamer in Modern, but it copies any artifact. So you can, for 4 mana, copy your Monument. So it just gives you more ways to have draws where you have the second Monument, which is so cool.
That's dope. Are all of these decks your own creations?
For the most part. I will say this Boros Monument deck, this specific list is one that I found off of MTGO. Mm-hmm. But I was kind of cooking with this a little bit before the PT. But yeah, the Hawk deck, the Wagon decks, those are mostly, I mean, as far as I'm aware, decks that I cooked up.
If the RC was before Dragonstorm,
like
do
tomorrow?
Do you think these decks have any potential, or are you still looking at Pixie or something else?
I mean, I want these decks to be good, but the problem is what I was kind of alluding to earlier, where it's really hard to play in the middle. And it does feel like a lot of these decks are sort of in the middle. They have aggressive starts. But specifically with a card like, Dragonhawk, for example, or even Wagon, they just bounce that thing, man. They pick up their Nightmare, they bounce your 3 or your 4 drop, and it's like, it's really hard to play cards like this, but yeah, I'm gonna keep on chugging. I'm gonna keep on trying as much as I can. But I probably would just play Pixie if the tournament was tomorrow.
Yeah. Final thoughts on Standard? Is it still fun times?
Yeah, I mean, the gameplay with Red, Beans, and Pixie is sort of a little monotonous. It can get a little bit stale and a little bit old, but there are even against those decks, there are still some enjoyable games, and I'm still having fun. I'm having a blast.
Sick.
But I mean, honestly, I think just final thought. I think part of the reason I'm enjoying it so much is because I'm trying something new basically every day. If I was just playing Pixie every day, like I would, we would be having a different conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's wrap it up with some spoilies.
Spoilies. I'm down.
There's some fun ones.
Hell yeah.
Dave and I already had a chance to talk about some initial spoilers last week, so I'd like to give you the opportunity to throw out anything that has really caught your eye or excited you. I have a few cards here that I really like, but what's caught your eye?
I have two specifically, and you let me know if you talked about either of these. The first one I'm going to throw at you is Flamehold Grappler. Talk about that one?
No, we have not.
All right, I'll read this one for the listeners.
Yeah.
It is Flamehold Grappler is a blue, a red, and a white for a 3/3 first strike. When this creature enters, copy the next spell you cast this turn. When you cast it, you may choose new targets for the copy. Note, I said copy the next spell, not non-creature spell. Any spell you cast gets copied.
Okay.
Now, 3 mana is a bit of a steep price, right? Trying to pay 3 mana for a 3/3 and then having enough mana left over to copy something ideally bigger is a bit tough. But where this card gets really good is when you reanimate it for 1 mana with Helping Hand. So if you can put this in the graveyard, you can get it back for 1 mana, and then you have a lot more mana to work with, and then you can start, basically copy anything with whatever mana you have left over. So I think, like, for example, in the Jeskai Oculus decks in Standard, you can discard this, reanimate it for 1 mana, and then you could cast an Oculus from your hand and copy it. You could cast, I don't know, a Steam Core Scholar from your hand and draw 4, discard 2. You could cast even something as small as a removal spell, kill 2 things. Like, this card has a lot of utility, and I think it's going to be very, very good. Definitely in the Oculus decks, but I'm sure there's honestly maybe even, applications for this maybe in Modern, because you can play Helping Hand in that format. I'm just saying.
I mean, it doesn't have to be Helping Hand. It could be Unearth.
Yeah, it could be Unearth too.
Yeah, this one, obviously, classic Stan fashion. I forgot to think about how you're cheating this, because I was reading that and I was just like, oh, you only get to copy 1 spell, and it's a Jeskai card, so I was like, oh, like, is there anything non-creature even worth copying? And then it's just like you need 3 plus like however much other mana. But the fact that you can make extra creatures is really interesting. And I just wonder, like, what's the single best creature to copy that wins the game on the spot, if there's like a Splinter Twin situation that you can enable?
I got it. So we're playing Jeskai Energy, right? We're playing Seasoned Pyromancer and Fable the Mirror Breaker to discard this.
Yep.
We have Jolted Awake to get it back.
Yep.
And then we're copying a Johnny.
So you immediately have a flip to Johnny.
With a red permanent in play. Talk to me.
Okay. Sold. Pre-orders. All right. What was the other card that was on your mind?
Oh, the other one was this one, probably less for Modern, but did you talk about Yathan Road Watcher?
Road Watcher.
Abzan
Nope.
4-drop.
No, we did not.
All right, perfect. So this one is 1 white, black, green, so 4 mana 3/3. When this creature enters, if you cast it, mill 4. When you do, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So I think there's potential for this card in Standard, where you can get back the new mini Siege Rhino for 3 mana. That's a pretty natural, just get back that, drain that for 2. You can get back Pixies, which you can then Pixie to bounce this, then go again next turn. You can get back, there's just plenty of stuff. But yeah, I think this card has potential. It is awkward because you do have to cast it. So it does not work with Scroll Shift, which is the flick. It's basically just 3 mana flicker, draw a card. But it doesn't work with that, which is kind of awkward. But yeah, just this card pairing so well with the Baby Siege Rhino. Be kind of like a natural curve. Play some self mill. I think this one's got potential in standard.
Nice.
What do you like?
Here's what I'll throw at you.
Hit me.
The first one, this was spoiled today. I think it was today. Scavenger Regent. So this is 3 and a black for a dragon. It has Exude Toxin as a sorcery omen for X black. Each non-dragon creature gets -X till in a turn. Mm-hmm. And then it also is a 4/4 flyer with ward, discard a card. Yeah, so I just feel like adding a black sweeper that you then can like draw into a threat could be good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really hate this card. The fact that it's weird because you kind of have to think of what we're used to adventures being sort of pure 2-for-1s, right? Where you play Stomp on turn 2, Bone Crusher on turn 3, or Heart's Desire on turn 1, Lovestruck Beast on turn 3. Mm-hmm. And these are more like split cards, right?
Yes.
Where you're casting. Do you want to cast your dragon? Do you want to play sweeper? But it's a really powerful split card. The ability to the fact that it gives -X, meaning that it won't trigger Heartfire Hero, is pretty big. So I like that. And then 4/4 flyer board, discard a card for 4 is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. The other card that it just seems like a really powerful addition to standard, especially, but could be useful elsewhere, is Nature's Rhythm, which is X green for a sorcery. Search your library for a creature with mana value X or less, put it on the battlefield, shuffle, and it has Harmonize for X green. And the point I saw made was, now this is in standard with Crater Hoof at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And Llanowar Elves for that matter.
Yeah, there definitely could be something there. I didn't even consider this card where, okay, so Foundations, a lot of weird reprints. Elvish Archdruid was one of the reprints in Foundations. Yep. So there's actually a good amount of elves. You have Leaf Crown Visionary, which is the one that the lord that lets you cantrip. So there's Twinen's Elite, so there could be something there. And then Rhythm kind of helps bridge the gap where it can find you the Archdruid to get you to hard cast more stuff, or like you mentioned, go find the Crater Hoof. There definitely could be something there. I could see it.
The other one, I pointed this out to you yesterday. You didn't say anything.
Okay.
But I'm going to make you say something
5/5?
now. Yeah. Rot Curse Rakshasa. It's a 1 and a black for a 5/5 demon with trample and decayed. So this is decayed on a non-token creature. And it has renew for X black. Exile this card from your graveyard. Put a decayed counter on each of X target creatures. Activate as a sorcery. The joke I made was put this in red, black, burn, because this is just your second Ball Lightning, since Ball Lightning is also in Foundations.
True.
And you have Bolt Wave. There's probably some other burn adjacent cards you can think of.
Okay. He's cooking.
That's the soup. That's what I've cooked. Red, black, burn with Rot Curse Rakshasa.
I do think this card has some applications in standard. Importantly, I want to highlight the fact that it is a demon, which is quite relevant for Unholy Annex, and very important in standard specifically because we have not had a 2-mana demon that you can reliably play, right? The Pioneer, for context, the Pioneer Rakdos Demons decks, they play Blade of the Oni, which is, for all intents and purposes, a 2-mana 3/1 that it has Menace, but it's a 2-mana 3/1 that the only relevant part is that it's a demon. So this being able to curve into Annex is kind of nice. And the other application is you can play it on turn 2. You attack on turn 3. They're not going to block it because it's a 5/5 trample. And then you can pick it up with Kaido.
Yep.
So there's some cool stuff. And
that's cool.
And the Renew, being able to put decayed counters on all their stuff, can sort of act like a falter, right? You can just make all of their stuff unable to block for a turn.
I always forget that that's part of Decayed, is the creature can't block.
Yep. So it's cool. It's got some applications.
Yeah. I also feel like it's a 2-mana 5/5 mythic, which to me just kind of screams of they know how powerful it is, so they made it ultra rare.
Yeah. Ultra super secret rare. All right, I'm going to hit you with this one. You may have to control F it. It's Sun Pearl Kieran. And this one is the picture is only in Japanese, so you have to pull it up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I can't control F this one. So read it.
I'll read it.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. So it's an uncommon. It is a white and a colorless for a 2/1 that has flash and flying.
Yep.
When this creature enters, return up to one other target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it's a token, draw a card. So, one of the most popular decks, if not the most popular deck in Standard at the moment, is Pixie, where it's trying to utilize enchantments that have ETB abilities, a bunch of ways to bounce them. This is another way to do that. But what's interesting about this one, there's a couple of cool applications. So first of all, it has flash, which means you can get a little bit more tricksy, because the cards tricksy with Pixie. The cards that you play that bounce right now, at least the creatures, are Nurturing Pixie and Fear of Isolation, which are both sorcery speed. So you can have a little bit more applications there. And the other cool thing is it also works very well with a card that kind of waxes and wanes, but some people still play it, which is Spiteful Hexmage. And I'll give you a read of that one. And so it's black for a 3/2. So, 1 mana 3/2. The downside is that when it ETBs, you have to put Cursed roll, I think it's called Cursed, on one of your creatures, which makes it into base power and toughness 1/1. But the roll is a token. So if you go turn 1 Spiteful Hexmage, put the roll on it, turn 2, play this, bounce the roll, draw a card, and hit them for 3, that's another cool application. But yeah, definitely a card that people will play in Pixie, and I think quite a good one.
That's sick. I saw someone mention that you can play this with the demon as well, where after the demon attacks with the decay trigger on the stack, you flash in the Kieran and get it back to your hand.
Yep. You can also do that with this town big enough too on the demon, so that's another good shout out.
Yeah. All right. Last card I want to mention to you.
Okay. What you got?
This is, as of now, the first card with Flurry that I've liked.
Okay. Is it the equipment?
It's the equipment. Corey Steelcutter.
Yeah.
So this is 1 and a red for artifact equipment. A creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and haste. And it's got Flurry. When you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. You may attach this equipment to it. Or you can just equip for 1 and a red. I love that it's an equipment that keeps making bodies that you are then just equipping it to for free. And the fact that the tokens now have haste and trample and prowess feels really powerful, even though the first two, it depends on what are the first 2 spell types you're casting. The way the sequencing works, it might miss a couple prowess triggers potentially before it gets really, really huge. But even so, I feel like this is a powerful engine to just make a ton of bodies that always connect. And if the body's dealt with, then you just make more bodies next turn by playing cantrips or doing normal prowess stuff.
Right. Yeah, so I think this card is cracked, by the way. I'm glad you brought this one up.
Nice.
And the sick thing about it is, for me, is you don't even need to be playing that many non-creatures for it to be good. And, if you look at the makeup of the current mono red decks in Standard, they have a lot of 1-drops. They're playing Hardfire Hero, Monastery of Swift Spear, Hired Claw, they have Burst Lightning, they have Torch the Tower, they have, Monstrous Rage, upwards of 24 cards that cost 1 mana. They're double spelling every single turn. And what's nice about Flurry is it's not only 2 non-creatures, it's just any 2 spells.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you just go, turn 2 Cutter, turn 3 Manifold Mouse, Heartfire Hero, make a 1/1, haste that, go to combat, get a counter on the Manifold Mouse, and you're kind of attacking from different angles. And the fact that you can also, another important part of this is, even if you're not double spelling and you just have this in play with a mouse, it triggers all of your Valiant stuff too. So I think this card is crazy good.
Sweet.
Oh, it also gives your Heartfire Hero haste. So yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah. What are we doing here? I can't believe it's just a rare, to be honest.
I know. It's crazy.
All right. Anything else that you're dying to talk about? That weird 5-color dragon
Oh God,
enchantment?
no, please, no. I don't want to.
Yeah,
No,
I don't want to either.
I think that's pretty much all I got. I mean, as far as like the really, really sweet ones. Okay, last one, I promise. Fang Keeper's Familiar. You didn't talk about this one, did you?
Nope.
Sultai Flash Guy. Okay.
No.
So this is 1 blue, black, green, 3/3 flash. When this creature enters, choose one of 3 options. First one is you gain 3 and surveil 3. Second one is destroy target enchantment, and third one is counter target creature spell. So it's a kind of like a callback to Mystic Snake. The creature type is snake.
Yeah.
But this one, man, it's got a lot of uses. Like destroying enchantments, huge in standard. There's a lot of enchantments. Being able to counter creature spells, and then if even just gain 3, surveil 3 that's a lot on a 4-mana card. I think this one's got potential.
Yeah, the surveil is interesting because it's not drawing you a card. It's just it's letting you dig 3 deep and decide like if you want a specific draw next turn or just to get 3 dead cards out of the way. But maybe just surveilling 3 cards to the yard as a blanket move may be powerful in and of itself.
Yeah, because you could have some self-mill synergies too. You know, like cards that pay you off for having X number of cards in the graveyard, or it's good with Delve. Like they brought back Delve as a mechanic, so
they brought back Delve.
They sure did.
What's the new Delve? I didn't notice Delve.
Well, it's mostly a joke. The dragon, you get the dragon that gives all your stuff Delve. I think that's the one card that is Delve.
Oh, I don't think I even noticed it.
Okay.
I'm sure it exists. Well, fun set, looking good. A lot of colors.
I like it so far.
Crazy world, a lot of smells. Yeah, I'm liking it too. I think this is going to be a welcome addition to the legacy that is Tarkir. And I think when we record next episode, we'll have the full set too. So maybe we can talk about our favorite cards from this spoiler season before we try them out ourselves.
Some picks to click.
Picks to click. Well, Devin, we did it. We recorded an episode, and we didn't even need one of our parents to tell us it would be okay.
We recorded an episode about everything, but at the same time about nothing.
That is the dive down way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. If you use Apple or Spotify, please leave us a rating and review. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Blue Sky. Just search for The Dive Down or email thedivedown@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/thedivedown. Check out thedivedown.com/store for some sweet swag. Head over to heavyplay.com to get some incredible deck and dice boxes and playmats featuring the Equip Mag system, and use promo code TheDiveDown2025 for 10% off your first order at Heavy Play. We have a promo code with Mana Traders that gets you 25% cash back after 3 months of service. That's promo code TheDiveDown, all one word. Find Devin on twitch.tv/Doomwake. The O's are zeros, people.
They are.
You know it. You get it by now.
I'm glad that you keep telling them that, though.
You never know. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and brace yourselves for band.